Hello and thank you for joining us on the Capitol Report on NTD television. I'm your host, Steve Lance. Here's a look at some of the stories we've been covering for you today. A leaked draft Supreme Court ruling shows how the justices are expected to rule on Roe versus Wade. Protesters have rallied in D.C. to express their thoughts on the issue. And former Planned Parenthood clinic director Abby Johnson joins us to give her take on the current status of Roe versus Wade amidst the fallout from the leak. And what about the leaker? Some Republicans are calling for a full investigation and vowing to put this person in jail. What's coming next? With some focused on the potential decision coming from the Supreme Court to overturn Roe versus Wade, we're tracking the other side as well, the unprecedented nature of the leak decision and what the intention may have been behind the leak. Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmitt joins us to discuss. A leaked document reveals that the nation's highest court is expected to overturn the landmark Roe versus Wade case. The Supreme Court today confirmed that the draft is authentic. The draft decision caused protesters to immediately gather in D.C., a testament to the weight of the Supreme Court's expected ruling. Here's NTD's Melina Wisecup with the details.
This leaked document indicating that the justices could overturn Roe versus Wade caused uproar here in Washington, D.C. We've seen protesters from both the pro-life side and the pro-choice side. They've been out here, some of them, since last evening. We spoke to them to find out how they're reacting to this potential change to the U.S. abortion law. Here's what they told us.
This is a great day for unborn children everywhere, but we have to acknowledge that the final victory hasn't been won yet. And it won't be won until we're no longer voting on whether people have the right to live or not.
As soon as we heard the news last night, we were like, we're going to be at the court tomorrow because we are indeed the post-Roe generation, and this is history in the making.
While pro-life activists are cheerful, supporters of Roe versus Wade are not looking forward to this final ruling.
You can expect it, but it's shocking. It's just shocking. My mom, the first thing she said was, I didn't think this would happen in my lifetime.
And a few Democrat senators appeared today to speak to the pro-abortion group.
And we will take this fight to the U.S. Congress and the U.S. Senate.
It was really hard to hear, and I'm hoping that before the actual document comes out, there are some changes, but I'm hopeful, but doubt it'll happen.
The draft document of the court's ruling, written by Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito, reads, Roe was egregiously wrong from the start. We hold that Roe and Casey must be overruled. It is time to heed the Constitution and return the issue of abortion to the people's elected representatives. Some protesters point out that abortion is not a black and white issue.
So when people say, do you agree with abortion, that's a very different question than do you agree with abortion on all 9 months. So when people say that they agree with abortion, they do not mean that they believe up to the day of birth that abortion should be legal.
If the majority of justices on the conservative-leaning court stick to the opinion in the draft, it could lead to stricter limits on abortion access in conservative states. But any state could still legally allow abortions if they so choose.
Melina, we know Democrats have given their message of disapproval of the court's likely decision here. So how are lawmakers reacting?
Well, Steve, Senate Democrats and House Democrats wasted no time in responding to this. Immediately after that news broke last night, Senate Leader Chuck Schumer, alongside House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, sent out a statement about this. And just today, Senate Leader Chuck Schumer says he'll force a floor vote on to codify Roe versus Wade and make it the law of the land. But, Steve, the reality is that Democrats hold a very thin majority in the Senate. So even when they hold this vote, they don't have enough support across the aisle to pass it and get it into law. So if the Supreme Court continues along these lines and does rule to overturn Roe versus Wade, it won't be easily reversed. Steve, back to you.
NTD's Melina Wisecup reporting. Our next guest was a director of a Planned Parenthood clinic and has since changed her stance on the issue of abortion. Abby Johnson is on the road, but we wanted to get her thoughts during the significant moment in history for the pro-life movement. Abby, what's the feeling right now in the pro-life community based on how this leak is playing out?
I think that there's, of course, a lot of optimism right now because of the draft opinion that was released, but also a feeling of a little worry. This leak is not something that we wanted. It's not the appropriate way to find something like this out. We wanted just the court opinion to come out in the way that it should have. So I think that there's a bit of worry about what this is going to do, which is, of course, why it was leaked in the first place, to cause upheaval and in the court and in the American public. So, now we have congressional members, calling for, Congress to codify Roe, calling for court packing, among other things. And so, I think there's a bit of worry, what are the justices going to do? Are they still going to wait until June? Are they going to come out with this earlier, come out with their opinion earlier? So now everything feels a little uncertain.
So it certainly sounds like there's a bit of cautious optimism there. If, in fact, the leaked decision does stand, I just want to get your thoughts on where you think the pro-life movement's battle will go from here.
Well, certainly, the battle for the past 50 years has been one battle. So, the battle has been at the Supreme Court. Now we're looking at even a bigger battle, because now we're looking at a battle of 50 battles, really, each state battle. And so now we're looking at something even bigger, a bigger undertaking. And so we'll have, some states that are, looking to codify Roe, that are looking to expand abortion access as we know it. And then you're going to have states that swing, the pendulum far to the right. And so then you're going to have some that are, protecting the preborn at the moment of conception. And so it looks like it's going to be, far blue, or it's going to be far red. And so I don't know that there's going to be much middle ground there. And so the pro-life movement is going to really have to, start activating around, pregnancy centers and legal protections for the preborn at a state level.
A question I like to ask anyone when talking about this issue, especially, at this critical moment, is abortion illegal? If you watch some other networks, you would think that there's some draconian measure that's just been handed down. What's your take?
I mean, right now everything is as it was just, 2 days ago. So nothing has changed. We're just, if Roe is overturned, right now everything kicks back to the states, which is where it should have been from the beginning. The states have a right to make laws depending on the will of the people in that state. And so, we're not talking about abortion being illegal in every state across the country. So actually, it would be about 26 states where abortion would be illegal, affecting approximately 40% of women in childbearing age. So the majority of women in the country would still have access to legal abortion. That, of course, could change depending on states and what they decide to do. And so states would have to make that decision, but the majority of women still would have access to legal abortion. And then, activists at that state level would have to fight it out.
Abby Johnson, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. Thank you.
And how are lawmakers reacting to the unprecedented leak? And what does it mean to the Supreme Court's ability to do its job? NTD's Iris Tao brings us more.
Contrasting reactions from the two sides of the aisle. Democrats have overwhelmingly focused on the substance of the draft ruling, which says to overturn the landmark abortion case Roe v. Wade, instead of focusing on the leak itself.
I don't know who leaked the opinion or why, but I know that today, women and men across this country are grappling with the very real concern and, yes, the fear that they may lose a critical constitutional right in just a matter of weeks.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer also decried the draft ruling while pivoting to the upcoming elections.
The rights of 100 million women are now on the ballot.
Meanwhile,
whoever did this leak should be prosecuted and should go to jail for a very long time.
Republicans, on the other hand, are demanding a full investigation into the leak, which they're calling
the ethical violation, very potentially the legal violation.
Unprecedented, as despicable as it is dangerous.
This, as the Senate Minority Leader says, the leak is an intentional effort
to stir up an inappropriate pressure campaign to sway an outcome.
Senators from two parties clashed in a Tuesday hearing on judicial ethics, which coincided with the Supreme Court incident. Senator John Kennedy noted that only a very finite group of people could have had access to the leaked document, and such individuals should all get a visit by the FBI.
Either tell the truth or lie to an FBI agent, which subjects them to criminal prosecution.
But Democratic Senator Sheldon Whitehouse questioned the FBI's involvement.
Why FBI agents from the executive branch should be running around within the Supreme Court.
And Whitehouse had this to say about Kennedy's call for the Justice Department to identify the leaker.
And I guess we'll begin by trying to identify what law that person might have violated.
Meanwhile, President Biden did not address the leak during his Tuesday remarks either, though he called for Congress to codify abortion rights.
To break down the implications of what the Supreme Court draft decision leak means for the country and the Supreme Court as an institution, we have Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmitt, who is also running for the United States Senate, here to discuss. Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmitt, thank you so much for joining us on the Capitol Report.
Great to be with you.
You're running for United States Senate. We obviously know the relationship between the Senate and the Supreme Court runs deep in our Constitution. With regard to this, what appears to be a leaked draft opinion reversing Roe versus Wade, what is the bigger story, the decision or the leak?
Well, I mean, the decision, obviously, if this is what ultimately plays out, is a big one, and certainly something that I've advocated for in the Dobbs case. Missouri, along with a bunch of other states, have filed briefing on that. That would be a big story. But I also think the idea that this draft opinion's been leaked, it's literally never happened before. It's unprecedented. And but not all that surprising, I guess. The left is completely unhinged right now, and they know they're losing. And there's not any norm or rule that they're not willing to break for raw power. And I think that's what you're seeing play out. But it's obviously very disturbing.
Now, you just sort of touched upon it there. The Supreme Court sits directly across from the Senate side of the Capitol. What makes this leak any different than the others that, you know, there's so many that happen in Washington, D.C.?
Well, it's just it literally has not happened with the Supreme Court. I mean, that is supposed to be that co-equal branch of government. These draft opinions get, sent around and people, sign them and they draft their own. And it's a pretty sacred trust, I think, among those justices. And for this to be leaked now, really as an effort to intimidate, is again unprecedented, not surprising, but really tragic. And it's very obvious what they're trying to do. I guess they're trying to get somebody to change their vote or to put so much public pressure that they would change their opinion on this. I don't think that's going to happen. I hope that doesn't happen. But that's the aim here of the left. I think this looks like it was very coordinated, and again, just breaks every norm that you could imagine at the Supreme Court.
Attorney General, some very prominent legal experts have called this an insurrection. Is that a proper categorization?
I mean, I'm fine with putting whatever label you want on this. I mean, the left is always, talking about threats to democracy, right? They throw that around. I mean, this really is something that people ought to, their jaws ought to drop, that they're willing to sacrifice. The Supreme Court plays a very important role, obviously, in our system of separation of powers and checks and balances. And for the left to throw this out there, it's very clear what they're trying to do. They're trying to change an outcome. But again, that's what you do when you don't have the law on your side and you don't have the reasoning on your side. You do things like this, and it's just a raw power grab. But we've seen this. Look, this is what's been going on with COVID. You talk about masks or vaccine mandates. It had nothing to do with data or science. It was all about power and control. This is what tyrannical regimes try to do. And you see the left here using these same tactics now at the Supreme Court in a way that's never been done before. And they ought to be widely criticized, of course, but hopefully it's not effective.
When it comes to the actual ruling, does this mean that abortion is actually illegal?
No, ultimately, Roe versus Wade was a decision not based on anything in the Constitution. What would happen if Roe v. Wade is overruled, which it looks like it will? These issues will go back to the states, and the states will decide how they want to handle this, very controversial topic. And for the Supreme Court, the 9 justices, 50 years ago, to take this and decide for everybody once and for all what it was going to be like everywhere in the country was wrong. And so when and if Roe v. Wade is overturned, the issue goes back to the states.
You have quite a primary coming up with a lot of high-profile names. What's your message been, and when is primary day in Missouri?
Yeah, August 2nd, so just about 3 months away. My message has been, look, a lot of people can talk about issues. A lot of people can, give quotes about issues, but there's one proven conservative fighter, that's me, that's taking a blowtorch to the Biden agenda, this radical agenda that seeks to undo all of the successes we had under President Trump: a secure border, energy independence, a growing economy, all of these things that were going well, that I defended as Attorney General, as the America First candidate here. We're challenging the Biden administration. We're winning. I mentioned the vaccine mandates. Missouri was, I was the AG that brought that OSHA case to the Supreme Court. We won. On the Remain in Mexico case, I was back in front of the Supreme Court just last week on that issue. We've won before on border security. We're suing on Title 42. We're suing on President Trump's border wall to get that finished. All these important issues, I'm actually taking action. I think Missourians want a proven conservative fighter that's never going to quit on the state. I want to take that same fighting spirit to the Senate.
Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmitt, thank you.
Great to be with you.
A police officer discharged their firearm inside of a congressional building today, and the officer has been suspended. We'll bring you the details. The FDA is cracking down on drugs tested in China. The agency has rejected applications from pharmaceutical companies seeking to sell their drug products in the United States. That's because the testing was mostly done in China. Another wild fox has wreaked havoc in Washington, D.C. National Zoo staff arrived yesterday morning to discover that 25 of the zoo's animals have been killed. Hello and welcome back to NTD's Capitol Report. I'm your host, Steve Lance. A U.S. Capitol police officer discharged their firearm inside of a congressional office building earlier this morning. The officer was suspended right after the incident. The Capitol Police is investigating the case. This comes as there is a heightened level of security on Capitol Hill today due to the fallout from the leaked decision from the Supreme Court. Today, Secretary of State Antony Blinken recognized World Press Freedom Day at D.C.'s Foreign Press Center. Blinken emphasized the importance of independent media for democratic values.
Free press is one of the most effective tools that we have for advancing human rights.
Blinken first talked about journalists who died covering Ukraine, including Fox News journalist Benjamin Hall, who lost half of his leg, his other foot, and lost his vision in one of his eyes while covering the Russian invasion. He added that oppressive countries jail their own citizens, with China holding the largest number of reporters. Taiwanese reporter Stacy Su brought up Beijing's influence on Taiwanese media, such as pressuring companies not to advertise with those who criticize Communist China. Blinken said that disinformation was part of the CCP's hybrid warfare,
including cyber attacks. And these are designed to basically distort the information environment and democratic processes. So we've partnered with Taiwanese authorities on this, civil society organizations, to support independent, fact-based journalism.
Blinken said that the goal is to build societal resilience to misinformation and foreign interference. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis lashed out at Disney on Tuesday for profiting off of China while ignoring the CCP's human rights abuses.
You know, Disney has done a lot to partner with the Chinese Communist Party and really has made a fortune over there without raising a peep about any of their atrocities. I think China is the #1 geopolitical threat that this country faces. I think, you've had the ruling elite in this country for decades have basically done all they can to elevate China. And a lot of them made a fortune off it, but it's made our country weaker.
Last year, Disney's streaming channel in Hong Kong removed an episode of The Simpsons because it mentions the CCP's Tiananmen Square massacre. The company also faced backlash 2 years ago for filming in Xinjiang, where the Uyghurs and other minorities are being detained in concentration camps. The FDA is choosing not to approve 2 cancer treatment drugs from 2 companies with close ties to China. The drugs were mostly tested in China during the trial period. The FDA responded to the drug makers saying that their China-based clinical trials did not represent the U.S. patient population and current U.S. medical practices. The decision came shortly after the agency declined to approve another drug from Eli Lilly and its Chinese partner. Eli Lilly's drug was only clinically tested inside of China. The FDA's rejections are seen as a sign of an increasingly tough U.S. stance on China-based drug testing for the American market. The National Zoo is met with tragedy after a wild fox broke into the flamingo section and killed 25 of the pink birds. Zoo staff discovered the dead flamingos early Monday morning. An inspection of where the birds are housed revealed a hole in the wire barrier the size of a softball. Staff says they believe the fox likely entered through the hole. The zoo is taking steps to update the wire mesh barrier and is installing traps as well as digital cameras around the flamingo yard. This latest attack comes a month after a California congressman was bitten by another wild fox on Capitol Hill. And that's all we have for you this evening on the Capitol Report. Don't forget to check out our Capitol Report podcast across all major platforms. I'm your host, Steve Lance. Have a great evening, and we'll see you again tomorrow.